interesting things yesterday, so I figured I should pick your brain a little bit.
Okay.
So, you good? All right, my name is Joe. I go by Literary Joe.
Okay.
Do you have a company name?
It's called the Nafziger Collection. My name is George Nafziger, and my doctorate's in military history.
Cool. What school did you go to?
My undergraduate and master's degree are Miami University. My doctorate's the Union Institute. It's a non-traditional school here in Cincinnati.
Did you start all that after you got out of the military?
No, long time afterwards. I got my master's degree in 75, 76 in business administration, and then had a career. And I was working at a place called Mound, a Department of Energy facility. And when the Soviet Union collapsed, the components for nuclear weapons that we made were no longer required. So they shut down several facilities, and mine was shut down. And they provided money for re-education, and I thought I would take advantage of that. And I got my doctorate in military history, and my hope was to go to some university and teach, but that didn't work out.
So what sparked your idea to translate these books on the war?
Well, let's start with how I learned French. I lived in France for 2 years as a child. I learned to speak French, but I can't write it with a lick, okay? Now, military history, I've been interested in that since I was a child, okay? And in 1974 and 5, I was stationed in Chicago. I was enlisting officer at the induction center in Chicago. And I met a gentleman named Ray Johnson, who was one of the first people, along with Fred Zittmeyer, to start miniature wargaming in this country. And they did it with Napoleonic. Zittmeyer wrote a set of rules called Column, Line, and Square. Ray wrote Frappe. I met him, started wargaming, and became very interested in the Napoleonic Wars, and started collecting figures and discovered there was a real lack of information on detailed and good, accurate historical information on this stuff. And cut a long story short, started buying books, started reading books in French. A fellow I know wrote a book on a campaign of Bonaparte, and I said I can do better than that, so I wrote a book called Napoleon's Invasion of Russia, and it is a very detailed military account of the campaign. I had so much information left over from that on the organizational structure of the various German and French armies and such. I started the business with 12 or 14 of those little books that I put together, and continued writing military history, but realized that I could make more money flogging these books, selling those, than I did from royalties from having a hardbound book published. And when I found these online libraries with PDFs that you could download, when I was starting out with a book in a stand, reading and translating and whatever, it became apparent that it was much more profitable to translate books that had never been translated from French into English before, and sell them shamelessly.
Do you still play war games?
A little bit, but not much. Downsized, sold off my figures to collections, don't have room for a table anymore. So that's, somebody else is putting the game on, I'll go and roll dice and screaming out.
Yeah, we play online, so, but have any of the other war games inspired, based on what was incorrect, inspired some of your reading and translating?
I don't know that I would say war games have inspired, but to a degree, yes. I wrote a book called Imperial Bayonets. Started out as a paperback, got picked up, and it's gone through 7 editions right now. In fact, there's even a Chinese translation of it available. You can buy in China if you speak Chinese.
I don't.
And I went through the British, Russian, Prussian, French, and Austrian drill regulations, laid out how all the maneuvers were done. time and motion studies to show who could maneuver and operate more quickly than who else or whatever, and the tactical advantages. And that was based on what I had seen in a set of war games that had been, rules that had been written many years ago. And I looked at what he was doing and I said, that's wrong. It didn't happen that way. So I wrote that book. And yes, to answer your question in a very long discussion, that's how that came about. And yes, I have done that.
So then, with your war experience, I know you do a lot of history things. Do you do have you done any books translated based on what you know has been written that is untrue about the Vietnam War?
Well, my experience in Vietnam was after most of the American troops were gone, when the North Vietnamese overran the DMZ, and I was in the Navy, and my ship was sent across, and basically we were gun platforms, fired 20,000 rounds, targets on shore, and I have never seen any Vietnam War games that I would have had any involvement near in what was being done there. Basically indirect artillery fire. Now I have seen rules that do artillery fire in them, and they're obviously written by people who have never done it. But I mean, that would be splitting a lot of hairs. It's probably pointless.
So, do you have like a round ballpark idea of how many of your books you've translated?
Over 300. That's from French into English, and there are 5 or 6 I've translated from German.
When did you first start doing it?
It was about 1992.
I was 4.
Oh, okay, well, I'm 74, so. But literally, that's when I started, and it was slow and tedious because I'm putting a book in a stand and typing and reading and typing and reading. And so it's become much quicker now. I cheat. I use Google Translate, but I will tell you Google Translate is a very poor translator if you're looking for technical military terms. And I've run into idiomatic expressions that it doesn't translate. And basically I cut and paste from PDFs, do some correction, run them through Google Translate, and do a lot of editing and correcting. And to give you a quick example, the French word place, P-L-A-C-E. If you look in the dictionary, it'll say a place, a city square, something like that. Well, in the 18th century, it meant a fortress. And there are many other idioms like that. The word avertir can mean to warn, to advise, or to anticipate. And Google Translate doesn't understand the difference between those. I don't know how it picks what it does, but so you got to go back through and you understand. And there are many times, especially if I'm dealing with stuff that was published in the 17th century, 1650s, 1700s, where the vocabulary they don't know how to spell. Okay, French was being standardized, but wasn't standardized. So if you're dealing back, you get around 1700, 1740, 1750 is what you're dealing with. Google Translate don't do a good job. So you got to do a lot of work. And I wouldn't trust anything that I translated technically with Google Translate simply because it does not do a good job of it.
That's a good bit of information. I'm curious, is this also your opinion?
No, that's not mine.
Okay, I was going to say this is a drastic difference. So I was just
yeah, the gentleman that does that stuff is a longtime friend. He's an Iraq War veteran. He has PTSD and some other issues, and I've kind of taken him under my wing. I retired from the Navy as a captain. That's the rank immediately below Rear Admiral. And I've always looked out for the enlisted men under me. And since he was a friend and enlisted and such, I look out for him and try to get him out into society and back into the gaming situation. to help him readjust. It's been a long, hard road for him. So,
Do you find that cons like this are a good audience for what you are writing and selling?
I'm writing for the military historian, and breaking into that market is difficult. I find that conventions, a lot of military historians and buffs, so it's aimed at them. I have not been able to break out into the general market because I use an 8.5 by 11 format. It doesn't work.
Where would people find your stuff online?
I have a website. It's the Nafziger Collection.com, and I'll spell Nafziger for you. N is in Norman, A is in Andrew, F is in Frank, Z is in Zebra, I-G-E-R. And if you do a Google search on George Nafziger, you'll find my name all over the place. And you'll find my website too. But I'll tell you what. Zoom in on that, and you can see it, and that'll make it easier. How's that sound?
Okay. Well, it was wonderful getting to learn a little bit more about this.
Well, thank you, sir. Talk to you.
Hopefully, we see you next year.
Well, I plan on being here.
I will send you the links